Hey, what's up everyone? I hope you guys all had a good holiday. New Year's is next, but I did want to get a video coming out, the much anticipated suspension video that I have. As you know, I purchased the FEAL 411 Plus coilover setup. This is the suspension that I went with. I heard a lot of good things and it wasn't too pricey. I'm not really gonna be doing any track days with this car. Just want it for mostly aesthetic reasons. I think the car just sits a little too high for my liking. I just wanna try to get to the GT2 height on it. Nothing too crazy. We'll see, or ROW, whichever one gets me out of the driveway without scraping, of course. Let's get to unboxing this. Pretty good. Oh, I also did get the adjustable bump stops on here. I'm gonna give those a try. All right, so here's the suspension all unboxed. I think these look pretty good. Definitely heavy duty. These come with adjustable camber plates on this, which is pretty nice. Don't know how much I'm gonna need on them yet. But I do have these adjustable bump stops on here. This is exciting because I haven't really done anything like this on my own. All right, one thing I did get that I have had previously are these quick jacks. These things have been such a help working on the cars. I've mostly been using them just for taking wheels off, but I'm excited to be able to have the opportunity to get this car up in the air and make it nice and easy. All right, so since I have everything all set up, let me go get the quick jacks and start getting the car up in the air. As some of you know, these little puck for the jacks are pretty nice. They have this kind of oval indentation on here that you can pop up underneath the car. That way you have something nice and soft for the jacks to rest up on. And I'm gonna put these on the car right now. All right, lastly, I'm just gonna double check and make sure that all my jack points are good before I start lifting the car up. Actually, before I do that, I'm going to break loose all these lug bolts. Now that I got the car up in the air, I'll be able to start taking the wheels off. I was just making sure that these little stops were in the right position. Let off the pressure on them. But everything's ready to go. Makes it so much easier than lifting the car up and putting it on jack stands. So I really do enjoy that, and I highly recommend it. Man, this is turning into quite the workout for me. I shouldn't have ate all that pasta, so that's kind of killing me right now. But now I'll start getting the wheels off. Hey guys, real quick. On this hub, you can see it's quite rusty looking. I don't know, is that normal on these cars? I just don't see it on the front here. Guess we'll check out the other side to see what it looks like, but what are your guys' thoughts on that? Is that something I should be concerned about? Well, I do also have it on this side. In the back, looks the same, and a little bit here on the front on this one. So do they just need a cleaning? Do they need some type of protectant? I'm not sure. What do you guys think and suggest on that? All right, guys, I'm gonna be cutting this part just short for myself tonight. I just wanted to kind of get everything up in the air and disassembled, so tomorrow I can get a nice start on it and start getting the suspension taken apart. And like I said, I'm not really have done this myself, so I did pick up a couple things from Harbor Freight to help me out on this. I kind of looked up what I need, and I kind of got a couple things together to make this job a little easier. But tomorrow I'll have a fresh start on it. Hopefully I won't feel so bloated after dinner, and make some progress on this. So I'll see you guys up next. All right, guys, new day, needed a fresh start. Last night I was dealing with some dinner stuff, so wanted to start off fresh so I'm not struggling and breathing so heavy. But as you can see, I wanted to start on this suspension and kind of play around with it by myself without recording, just because I've never done this and I didn't want to feel embarrassed by struggling. This was really tough to do, to get everything. There's so many different YouTube do-it-yourself videos and forum posts, and it was just kind of confusing. And some people said you have to take off this nut, and then some people said to take off the 6 bolts on the diff, and that's the route I did go with, because the 320 foot-pounds of torque on this kind of intimidated me quite a bit. I ended up doing the route where I take off the 6 bolts back there, and those are pretty easy. You just have to put a couple extensions together and to reach that, but those are 6mm Allen keys. I did that. I took off this tie bar, so I had to go to a parts store and pick up a ball joint separator to get that out. I did the caliper, I took that off with these 2 10mm Allens. And then I hung it up here and then loosened that up. With only 20,000 miles on this car, there's really no corrosion on here, so I was pretty lucky to be able to slide off the old shock out of here without having to use a hammer or anything. So that was kind of nice. Another useful part that I ended up doing was taking off these clips, unplugging these, and there is a 10 millimeter nut right here, and then another 10 millimeter bolt back here, and it takes off this whole bracket, and then that way it kept any stress off of there. That helped out a lot. And then coming up top here, I took the advice of marking where my bolts were before I took them off, and then that way I kind of keep my suspension in line. So then I just made sure I put the bolts and torqued them down. I still need to look up and see what exactly the torque specs are on everything, so I make sure everything's torqued correctly, and then I'll bring it down to the shop, just have one of my buddies verify that everything's done correctly. So it'll be a nice, slow and cautious drive back to the shop, and then hopefully get an alignment on it and be good to go. I did measure these before I started, and from the center of this bolt to the bottom of this fender is like 15 1/4 when the suspension's compressed. And then on the other side, once I installed the new coilovers, I'm at 14 inches exactly from the bottom of this fender to the middle of this bolt. So hopefully that's gonna be a decent drop, you know, an inch plus, and I'm hoping I don't have to do too much adjustments afterwards. So like I said, I'm already starting on this side. Just unplug this stuff. Let's just and pry this off. Of course, so pry that off, and then you can unplug these, and then I'll get these 10 millimeter bolts back here. Oh, this is the control arm here. Anyways, the control arm, there's a 16 millimeter and an 18 millimeter, and I was told to loosen those up so it drops down further so I can get the clearance to do this. I did tape up this fender really well, so I didn't get any scratches. It was a lot of work pressing it down so I can get the clearance. But other than that, it sounds a lot easier than what it has been, but I'll try to film a little bit more now that I got a little experience on the other side, and hopefully this will help you guys out. Also, I forgot to mention that this under tray needed to be taken down. It's real simple. There's these plastic 10 millimeter nuts that are on this. There's 2 here in the front, as you can see, and then there are 2 in the back, and I just have it hanging up there, lodged in there. And then it has these metal retaining clips. So basically you just kind of pry these on the corners, and then they just kind of pop out and spring everywhere. So make sure you don't lose them. I believe there's 6 of them here. On the other side, something that I ended up doing that I don't think I'm gonna try on this side are these bolts right up here. I believe there's 2 right here. Sorry, I can't get the camera on them. These right here, there's 2 15s right here. That's an 18 and that's a 16. On one of the videos that I was watching, the guy took those off, and after getting it finally done, I didn't see the reason why those needed to be taken off. So I'll see if I end up doing that And then of course, here's the two bolts right here. I think this is the 18 on the nut side, and then on the bolt side it's a 16. So I just loosen those up, and I don't really take those out completely. And then of course, then there's this where I needed to use the ball joint spreader, and there's just a nut on the very top up here, and then that spreader will pop that off. So when I get to that point, I'll show that. Other than that, let's get started. All right, so now that I got the speed sensor and the brake wear sensor taken off this piece, I'm gonna move over to the caliper, and it's a 10 millimeter Allen. All right, so now 10 millimeter, and take off this whole bracket completely. All right, so now I'm gonna get this tie rod taken apart, and it's an 18 millimeter bolt. This is the tie rod adjuster that I got at Harbor Freight. You just kind of put this down here on the bottom under this bracket where the rubber gasket is, and then the top of this goes right on top of that bolt, and then you just tighten this down, and it just puts pressure, and then it'll pop that bolt head right through the, what is this, the casing, I don't know exactly what this is called, but it'll just push this bolt through here without messing up the threads. Now I'm just going to tighten this. Oh, there it goes. Well, that was a lot easier than the other side. That's nice and easy. That's the whole point, right? Second time you do it, make it a little easier. All right, so that'll help me drop this control arm down so I have enough clearance for that fender. All right, so next I'm going to take off the drive shaft, or is it an axle? The axle off the diff, and these bolts right here, they're 6 millimeter Allen heads. There's 6 of them. So I'll kind of show you guys the extension that I have to make up to reach in there and get those taken out. All right, so what I came up with is just a simple 6-inch and a 12-inch extension. And then I have this swivel. I saw a buddy of mine that's a mechanic, and it seems like he uses this swivel thing quite often. So I picked it up, and I'm glad I did, because it's not a straight shot in there. So being able to make a slight adjustment for the angle is pretty nice. And then of course the 6 millimeter Allen on the top. And then my impact, because I think if I remember right, it said that there's 60 foot-pounds of torque on them. So this breaks them loose pretty easy. As As you can see, I can rotate this rotor around to line it up where it's easy for me to reach, so I'm not kind of going all over the place. All right, there's 3. And the last one. So on these bolts, you got a pretty long shaft on it, and then they have these brackets that go in between the bolts. All right, so the last piece I think I have now are this bolt and nut right here. The backside bolt part is going to be a 16 millimeter, and then this nut on this side is going to be an 18 millimeter. So I'll use a wrench on the back and then a socket right here. All right, so bolt and nut. All right, so we're gonna take off these plastics right here. And then this is a 25 millimeter Torx. All right, and then I did grab a pen. So just like the other side, I'm just gonna trace around these nuts so I know generally where the suspension is setting at its factory spec. And then I've just been numbering them just in case, I don't know. Just kind of self-insurance, I guess. I don't really know if that makes a big difference, but it sounds good to me. All right, and I believe these are 13 millimeter. Actually, before I forget, I need to put this jack underneath there so it doesn't just fall down. Now, let me get my drill. Right, moment of truth. Hopefully that's it. Let me double check and make sure all my cables are away. All right, so everything looks good. Everything's separated, and oh, I should tape it. Let me tape it. Okay, maybe I do. There we go. All right. So, yes, it was a tad bit easier the second time around with less struggles, less intimidation. The first time doing this was tough, of course. But here's the tie rod disconnected from there. And then there's the bracket that has the two 10mm bolt and nut, the caliper hanging up so it doesn't mess up this hard line. Loosened up the two bolts down here on the control arm. And then I did end up having to loosen up the two 15mm bolts on the sway bar. The axle was hitting this sway bar and not allowing it to drop down. So that was needed, and I went ahead so I don't mess up the grommet on whatever that piece is, and I took that off, and that was it. Nice and simple so far. I did already set up the coilovers, so excuse the mess, but I already did the spring tension, and then I did measure out my coilovers to make sure that they are set the same on both sides, and I didn't do any camber adjustment on it. So this one is ready to go in the car. So like the other side, I did put some of this anti-seize in here. I don't know if it's necessarily really needed, but I just felt like maybe it might come in handy down the road. So I put a little bit in here. I'll take this coilover, and it does have just enough tension on these new shocks. Up using this pry bar to kind of spread it a little bit. There you go. Now I'll grab the oops. All right, so one of the scariest things that I had was this part right here. I was afraid that it was gonna be hard to line up this drive shaft in here, and luckily the other side was real easy, so hopefully this will be the same. So yeah, so that just kind of slides in there, and you can rotate this to line up your bolt holes. So don't be too scared to take off the axle. Like I said, there's conflicting information online, and some people say you do it this way and do it that way, and removing that 32mm nut isn't hard, but I can't speak to that because I was just worried about, I don't have anything that would torque down a bolt to 320 foot-pounds. So I went with this route, and I just read a lot about other people doing this online, and just sounded like that was the best route, and I'm glad I did. So like before, I just hand tighten this in so I don't accidentally mess anything up, because that's definitely the last thing that I need is to mess something else up and have to correct it. So I've just been taking my time. I'm probably 4 hours into the install at this point, but I haven't broken anything, so I guess that counts for something. All right, looks like my camera fell down at some point, but I got the bolts all hand tightened right now, and now I'll torque them down. Now these sway bar adjusters have 15mm nuts on them. I'll install these next. Correction, they're 17mm nuts. I think I might just install these calipers on here just to get them from hanging. All right, both the fronts are done. Everything's tightened down. Last thing I need to really do is figure out these torque specs and torque everything back down to the proper torques. But everything's back up and bolted, fitting nicely. I don't know how much adjustment I'm gonna need, but we'll see. But man, this has taken me quite the day to get this far. Pretty proud of what I've gotten done. I was definitely intimidated and waited a while to finally start working on this, but I'm glad I did. Feels pretty good. But I'm gonna stop at this point and I'll see if I continue later on today.
A few moments later.
All right, guys, I'm back on it. It's been a few days. I got the back end done up already, all installed. It's a little easier than the front, not as much things to take apart. It's basically this bolt right here that drops down the arm, and then the 3 bolts up here. I did disconnect the rear sway bar, and I think I'm gonna have to do some adjustment because I can't get that end link to line up. So I think I need to loosen those 2 bolts up again, and then twist that bar is what I'm hoping, so then I can bolt it back in, and then that's pretty much done. I also did put the wheel on just to kind of see where the wheel is setting, and the tire is basically real close to this fender without being compressed, and when it is compressed, it's just way too low. So I'm gonna have to adjust these coils afterwards. And then same in the front here, I put the wheel on and then compressed it with the jack, and there's not really much difference between the stock height and what it sets right now, so I'm gonna have to adjust these also. But that's where I'm at right now. And oh, here's the inside. It's pretty easy. I don't have the rear sub, so I have less to take apart. Basically, I just had to pull this carpet back to access the 3 bolts up there, and that's pretty much it on that. So let's get started. So on this bottom strut bolt and nut, the bolt itself is the 16 head, and then the nut side is the 18. So what I've been doing is taking off the nut, and then the bolt stays in there. Crowbar. So the trick I found on this is sticking the crowbar on the bottom of this and prying upwards, and then you can pull out that bolt. So you relieve the pressure on it and it gets that bolt out. On the other side, I didn't do it this way and figured out later that if I release the pressure off of it, I can get that bolt to slide out. And on the other side, I basically wrenched it out, which is a complete pain in the butt because of how much space you don't have back here. So this time I'm using the pry bar up under the strut, prying upwards, and then that bolt just pulls right out. There you go. Now that that bolt's taken out, I'm gonna take off these two, I believe 15mm bolts for the sway bar and the bottom sway bar link, and take those apart. And then this will be ready to drop down. All right, on the sway bar link, it's going to be a 17mm on this side, and then 15mm on the nut side. All right, now that the sway bar is detached, the link is detached down there, and the bottom of the strut. So now all I have left are the top 3 bolts up here. So what I'm gonna do is take my jack and support that so it doesn't drop out, and then I'll slowly lower it down. Okay, now inside the car, I got a 14mm socket, and we can, oh, sorry. It's gonna be a 15mm socket. 3 15mm. All right, now it's all completely loose and ready to take out. All right, with everything loose, I can now drop this down. It's all still connected on the bottom of that strut. So what I need to do now is pry the bottom of the strut out. I'm gonna use this pry bar again. Just kind of watch your fingers because it'll pop right out. It's out of the support bracket. This just drops all the way down. And there you go. All right, so since the coilover is shorter, you can pull it up above everything and then push it back up. Now what I want to do first is get this bolt holes lined up so I can get that bolt in there. So it's going to be playing around with that. All right, I'm gonna use this jack to lift up the strut. I'll guide it in. All right, so the new struts come with new nuts, and those are a different size. So these ones are the 14mm. Okay, just want to get everything in there before I start torquing everything down to specs. I'll make a sheet with all the torque specs written down on them. And I'll torque all these down. As far as these dampers, they're 32-way adjustable. So I backed it all the way down to 0. verified going all the way up to 32, and then I just decided to have a start point, so I backed it down to 7, which makes it to 25. I'll have to drive around with it and see if that's too stiff, if I need to go back. So if 25 doesn't work, then I'll probably try 20 for my street driving, and I'll go from there. All right, guys, that's gonna be it for this video. It's taken me a lot longer than I expected. I didn't get as far as I wanted to on the first day, but I had some work, and now I'm not feeling too great, if you couldn't tell. But I'm gonna end this video here. Before I do any adjustments, I will put down all the torque specs for all the bolts that I loosened up and make sure everything's nice and tight. And then on the next video, I'll show you guys my adjustments on adjusting the coilovers to get it set where I want it to. Like I said, the fronts, although it looks like it lowered it, but it didn't really lower it much. And then the rears are just way too low, and I need to adjust those also. And then I do have the fabs on here, the field adjustable bump stops. I just have those just set at the factory settings that they came with, and I'll be adjusting those as well. So a lot of adjustments to be made, and I'm really happy that I got this far on it, and I'm excited to get it back on the ground and see how the new stand